Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Penn Vicarage. Lovely to see you, and thank you for being with us this morning. I think for the first time this year, I have sunshine streaming through the window, which is always cheerful and a good start for the weekend. Hope you have a lovely weekend. By the way, do feel free to join us at church, St. Bart's or St. Anne's. We'd absolutely love to see you, and you'd be very, very welcome. And we, as always, would say, we'd be a better church with you in it. But we are looking at Proverbs today and chapter 29. So here we go. One who is often reproved yet remains stubborn will suddenly be broken beyond healing. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. A child who loves wisdom makes a parent glad, but to keep company with prostitutes is to squander one's substance. By justice, a king gives stability to the land, but one who makes heavy exactions ruins it. Whoever flatters a neighbour is spreading a net for the neighbour's feet. In the transgressions of the evil there is a snare, but the righteous sing and rejoice. The righteous know the rights of the poor, the wicked have no such understanding. Scoffers set a city aflame, but the wise turn away wrath. If the wise go to war with fools, there is ranting and ridicule without relief. The bloodthirsty hate the blameless, and they seek the life of the upright. A fool gives full vent to anger, but the wise quietly holds it back. If a ruler listens to falsehood, all his officials will be wicked. The poor and the oppressor have this in common: the Lord gives light to the eyes of both. If a king judges the poor with equity, his throne will be established forever. The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a mother is disgraced by a neglected child. When the wicked are in authority, transgression increases, but the righteous will look down upon their downfall. Discipline your children, and they will give you rest. They will give delight to your heart. Where there is no prophecy, the people will cast off restraint, but happy are those who keep the law. By mere words, servants are not disciplined, for though they understand, they will not give heed. Do you see someone who is hasty in speech? There is more hope for a fool than anyone like that. A slave pampered from childhood will come to a bad end. One given into anger stirs up strife, and the hothead causes much transgression. A person's pride will bring humiliation, but one who is lowly in spirit will obtain honour. To be a partner of a thief is to hate one's own life. One hears the victim's curse but discloses nothing. The fear of others lays a snare, but one who trusts in the Lord is secure. Many seek the favour of a ruler, but it's from the Lord that one gets justice. The unjust are an abomination to the righteous, but the upright are an abomination to the wicked. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, lots of themes in here, and I'll just try and pick up a few, as I always do on these days, just pick up a few kind of highlights for you. Firstly, in verse 1, there's a theme which runs throughout the book of Proverbs about the importance of being teachable, the importance of never being so proud that you can't learn. And in verse 1, it kind of puts it rather beautifully poetic. The book of Proverbs is full of fantastic language. And it says here, one who is often reproved yet remains stubborn will suddenly be broken beyond healing. In the book of Jeremiah, it talks about being like a pot which gets broken. So this is somebody who is constantly corrected but refuses to do anything about it. So in verse 1 you hear the importance here of being teachable. And all the way through the chapter as well, you have also the importance of being prepared to correct your children especially, but the importance of being able to show children the right way to be, that there is such a thing as right and wrong, and showing them the difference between the two. So there's a theme throughout the book of Proverbs all about being teachable. And here it puts it in very strong terms here, about what happens if we're not. There's trouble coming, but also through the chapter as well, and constantly through the book, about the importance of correcting other people as well, especially children. There's also quite a big theme in this chapter about the importance of good leadership, especially nationally. So in verse 2, he has what it says here: when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people groan. So it shows here. So having good, righteous leadership in the country brings happiness. Having unrighteous and corrupt leadership makes people groan. Verse 4, you find that proper leadership brings stability. So by justice, a king gives stability to the land, but one who makes heavy exactions ruins it. And the irony, of course, is that Solomon's son, a young upstart called Rehoboam, who did exactly that, who made heavy exactions on the land, destroyed it. At the end of the kingdom ended up being split in two. So it's quite important here, well, very important. By justice, a king gives stability to the land, but one who makes heavy exactions ruins it. So good leadership brings happiness. It brings stability. In verse 12, it goes on: if a ruler listens to falsehood, all his officials will be wicked. So corruption at the top brings corruption further down. So if you have a corrupt leader, you end up with corruption becomes endemic throughout the system. It doesn't just stop there. Then in verse 16, we have when the wicked are in authority, transgression increases, but the righteous will look upon their downfall. So in the end, the righteous will see the downfall of the unrighteous in the end. So, when the wicked are in authority, it's inherently unstable. But when the righteous are in authority, because they're living life God's way, in a sense, it becomes much more stable. So you have throughout this chapter another theme, which you've got teachability, the importance of teachability, and importance of teaching others. But also you have the importance of good leadership, especially nationally. Another thing you have in this is it demonstrates that transgression or sin carries with it a snare. So it says in verse 6, in the transgression of the evil there is a snare, but the righteous sing and rejoice. Now, snare kind of implies that it kind of drags you in. And that's one of the problems with sin, one of the problems with transgression, one of the problems with disobeying God, is that can get a hold on us. It becomes like a snare. It kind of gets you in and keeps you in. So it's simple, but the righteous sing and rejoice. So the importance of being righteous as much as we possibly can, of living life God's way, because transgression can lead to more transgression. Lies can lead to more lies, and habits can lead to more bad habits, and so on and so on and so on. So the transgression carries with it a snare. So there's a warning here about making sure that we stay close to God. Then in verse 11, and in verse 20 and 22, we have the importance of self-control. So in verse 11, it says here, a fool gives full vent to anger, but the wise quietly holds it back. And in verse 20, we have, where is it now? Do you see somebody who is hasty in speech? There's more hope for a fool than for someone like that. And in verse 22, one given to anger stirs up strife, and the hothead causes much transgression. So it's about the importance of self-control. Now, we all have feelings, and we all like to vent them sometimes. Of course we do. But actually, if we possibly can, it's about the importance of remaining as much self-control as we can. Interesting enough, one of the gifts of one of the I forget one of the other gifts or the fruits of the Holy Spirit is self-control. And Paul says to Timothy in I think it's 1 Timothy, wherever it was, God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and of love and self-control. So we need to pray to God that he'll give us self-control, because actually we're much more effective that way. Then in verse 18, we have the importance of hearing from God. It says here, where there is no prophecy, the people cast off restraint. So we need to hear God, and we need as Christians to be open to what God has to say to us, to listening to God. Because where there is no prophecy, that means when people are hearing from God, and hearing from God now. So we need, my friends, we need to pray that God would speak to us more today. We need to hear what God is saying to the world today. Then finally in verse 25 and 26, he talks about the importance of the fear of others lays a snare, but one who trusts in the Lord is secure. Many seek the favour of a ruler, but it is from the Lord that one gives justice. So about the importance of not fearing people, but of fearing God, putting God first, and honouring what God has. Not spending all our time flattering and kowtowing and trying to curry the favour of others. But actually, it is in God we need to seek him and seek his kingdom. And because he knows, he has the power, he knows what's really going on. Because as it says here, the fear of others lays a snare, but one who trusts in the Lord is secure. And I think that's a good way to finish for the weekend. So again, 27 verses, there's 27 sermons in themselves. Just a few thoughts about the importance of remaining teachable in verse 1 and the consequences if we don't. The importance of good leadership in especially nationally, for the importance of bringing happiness, stability, and so on. In verse 6, about the importance of remembering that sin and transgression carries with it a snare. If we're not careful, it can drag us in. Verse 11, the importance of praying to God that God would give us more self-control. In verse 18, the importance of hearing from God, because where there is no prophecy, the people kind of go astray. And verse 25 and 26, about the importance of not trying to curry favour with people all the time, but instead listening to God and putting him first and trusting in him. Friends, I hope that makes sense. I hope you have a lovely weekend. On Monday and Tuesday next week, we're going to be looking at the last two chapters of Proverbs. Then from that, we're going to look at a new book, the book of Hosea, a fascinating book. You'll love it. But that starts on Thursday next week. In the meantime, have a lovely weekend. Thank you. As always, thank you for watching. Do please share this message, push the share button, share this message with your friends so they can enjoy them too. Have a lovely weekend.